Welcome everyone out there. I'm your host Jeff Graham, and this is the Fairfax Sports Report. Tonight we'll be talking with Joey Kamada of the Connection newspapers about playoffs and all sorts of upcoming activities in the week ahead. And we'll also maybe be discussing some trouble at one of the local high schools. So we'll have all that and more on the Fairfax Sports Report tonight. Before we go into any games and actions and such, we'd like to thank our underwriters, the people that make this show happen, the people over at Quality Care for Service Center, servicing all your makes and models. Joey, even your Ford can go over there and get serviced. 703-383-6299. And the folks at CCI Screen Printing. CCI Screen Printing is 703-978-0257. Well, Mr. Kamada, how are you feeling tonight? Feeling a little bit under the weather?
Remember when you're growing up and you get to skip school, but then you still get to go to your Little League game at night?
Right.
That's how I feel. I didn't make it into the office, but I made it to the show. So this is my Little League game for tonight.
And I know we're looking to get out of here quickly. We have Duke, North Carolina.
Duke, North Carolina.
Men's basketball going on tonight. So we'll look to get out of here. But first, we want to give you all the up-to-date information on sports and such. I guess general news. What's kind of going on in the region? Anything been picking at your brain the last couple of weeks?
Well, I guess one of the main story out of the Northern Region Council's meeting last week was the proposal to have cheerleaders at spring sporting events, which, as a former baseball player in the area, I found that quite odd. And thankfully, the region did vote. Donna King, the director of student activity at Chantilly, did vote that proposal down. Right. So we won't have any cheerleaders along the first and third base lines and on the pitch at the local soccer fields in the northern region, thankfully.
Right. Why, in your opinion, obviously, there's cheerleaders at basketball games in the winter, football games in the fall. Why do cheerleaders not work in the spring? Is it just because of the sports that are out there aren't really,
Sure. Well, your traditional cheerleading sports are football and basketball.
Right.
That's where cheerleaders go. I can understand Ms. King's, idea of saying, well, just because everybody else does it this way, why do we have to? Why can't we go against the grain? But another thing you have to look at is that these cheerleaders have their districts, regions, and state competitions in the spring. Right. And a lot of them, well, I guess at least the state competition is in the spring. Right. And a lot of them play spring sports. I know a lot of them play softball. A lot of the cheerleaders play soccer and lacrosse. Mm-hmm. So and even tennis, I think sometimes you see some tennis players on cheerleading teams. So it's kind of evolved into a yearly routine for a lot of these girls that they cheerlead during the fall and the winter, and then they play a spring sport.
Right, and I think the one big thing when tennis, tennis got moved to the spring, that was one of the problem areas. Are they going to be taking kids that play lacrosse or soccer? Now are they going to have to choose what they do? And the same way I guess would be with cheerleading.
I tell you that made our job a little bit more difficult, as if we didn't have enough to cover in the spring sports.
That's true.
Now we get to look forward to giving coverage to another sport this year.
Well, I guess you can't really blame Donna King for trying to to get the momentum going for cheerleading, trying to get the school spirit up over there. I guess on Monday, Chantilly held a boosters meeting with a bunch of parents who are very unhappy with the way the sports scene is going on over there at Chantilly. As we know, Chantilly is one of the bigger schools in that area, and they have been hurt with the openings of Westfield, and obviously with Centerville that there's a big rivalry between those schools. And I guess in just recent years, the Chargers have not been able to stay up with these teams. And when you look at football, for instance, we did some stat crunching in the office these past couple of days. Chantilly has never beaten Westfield, 0-4, and has lost their last 8 games to Centerville.
Lopsided scores too.
Lopsided scores. I think against Centerville in the last 8 games, Chantilly scored about 32 points. So that's a point a quarter. That is, as a football fan, do you find that obviously when you look at those numbers, they're almost embarrassing for if you would be over at Chantilly. What would make you go to a game like that? Right,
and their downward spiral kind of coincides with the departure of Dan Meyer as their football coach over there. He built them up to the point where in 1996 they won the Division VI state championship, and since then, as you mentioned before, 8 straight losses to Centerville, never beat Westfield, and those are the big. That's a big kind of triangle of rivalries over there in that Centerville, Chantilly area with those three schools. So there's a lot of competition. Now this whole deal with Miss King and these parents, it's just another case of, in my opinion, some of these parents in this area being a little bit too involved with their kids, in their kids' lives. These kids need to grow up on their own and kind of find out for themselves, this is how, things go in life. Sometimes you don't win at everything. Sometimes you lose, and it's, how well you respond that's going to determine what kind of character you have. Now, if it's 16, 17 years old, you're put in that situation, then so be it. Some people learn at a younger age. I could see their concern from the football standpoint because with Coach Meyer over there, he had built it up to, a state power. Where 95 and 96 to the region championship game, lost in 95, finally broke through, won in 96, and went on and won the state championship with Bowjune and those guys.
Right.
But it's kind of a sad situation. You hate to see it happen, but sometimes these schools, when you have all these new schools, and Hayfield and Lee could possibly be going through it here in the next 5 years as well, with South County opening up. So
right.
It's interesting.
Among the things that people were questioning, the hiring practice, for instance. How much Chantilly, boosters and parents are involved in, and who gets, hired and fired over there. The main person they were looking at was, like we said, the football coach, Marty Riddle. And, he, in his first year, he goes 0-10. And, when you don't win any games at a big, high school like Chantilly, it's not going to make people happy. How much do you think should be left up to the parents to decide?
None.
To decide who comes in, who goes out?
This is an administrative decision that is made by the principal, it is made by the athletic director and their staff. That's how it should be, and that's where it should end. The parents should have, in my opinion, no say on who's hired as the football coach and as the basketball coach, because the football coach is going to be there for a while, at least one would hope. The administration is going to be there for a while. They have long-term the best interest of the school in mind. These kids, these parents, their kids might play 2 or 3 years of varsity and then they move on. They move on to college. And their parents wipe their hands of it and they can go watch their kid play in college or whatever. But no, in my opinion, Boosters Club president or anybody in the Boosters Club or any parent should have no say in the hiring of a football or basketball or any coach, in my opinion.
Right. In terms of just, maybe everyday activity, keeping, tabs on the kids, do you think parents should be allowed to come to practices, watch their kids in that, aspect? Should they be able to go up to a coach after a game and say, maybe you should, try this?
No. If a parent has a problem with the coach, that's fine. But when it comes to X's and O's, that's the coach's problem. That's why he has assistant coaches to help him find what's going wrong and correct the problem. The last thing you need is a kid's parent getting involved with a coach and trying to give him pointers on what is the right and the wrong play to call in a certain situation. That all that does is put the kid in a bad situation where if you got your parent going and upsetting a coach, does that turn around and go towards how much playing time your kid is having or whether or not your kid starts? And all it does is cause tension from all parties. And no, in my opinion, a parent needs to be a parent. They need to raise their kid at home. They need to make sure they're doing well in the classroom. But the whole point of having a coach is just that, so that he can coach that team and do the X's and O's stuff.
I talked to one coach over there, Chantilly, Kevin Broderick, who recently became the boys lacrosse coach after years with the girls, and he said parents are very important in from doing stats, concessions, taking pictures, transportation, stuff like that. And he welcomes their participation. He says, we can't do it we don't get paid enough to be able to do all the things we want to do. But I think, as we've heard parents, we've received phone calls, we see it at games. Sometimes parents step over the line, and and a lot of it comes down to if the kid wants to get a scholarship, if he's playing, if they want to get their kid in the newspaper, then that's where you see maybe these parents going overboard a little bit.
Yeah, well, we see it working at a newspaper when we get phone calls about not doing enough reporting on one of their kids. It's just like, why don't you let your kid speak for themselves? They're 16, 17, 18 years old. Let them voice themselves. If they want to call us up or send us an email, I tell you, I would respect that much more than hearing from a parent, because if it's coming directly from the player, the student athlete,
then it's almost more genuine,
it hits home.
right?
Exactly. That way that this is truly what that the player, the athlete, is feeling. That it's not their parent, and worrying about getting them enough coverage and enough exposure. And you said it. You hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of pressure on some of these athletes nowadays to get a Division I scholarship, be it in football, basketball, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, whatever. And some of these parents may be putting a little bit too much pressure on their kids, and all that's going to do is drive them right away.
Right. I mean, that being said, there are a lot of parents out there that, generally do care for their kids, and they're looking out for them, and
Sure.
and these 16 kids they're 16 years old, maybe don't know exactly the course to take. So that's why they're obviously getting involved over there at Chantilly, and I'm assuming we're going to hear more about it in the weeks ahead.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and whether or not we see a domino effect. If people at other schools that are having struggling football programs, for instance, a Lake Braddock, maybe, if they see what's going on at Chantilly, if Chantilly's Boosters Club and parents are able to have any impact on Donna King's status, which I really hope they don't over there, or Marty Riddle's status, then all of a sudden it's going to be a trickle-down effect. Right. You're going to see parents and Boosters Club members at other schools thinking they're going to be able to do the same thing.
Right. I guess as far as college signings, we had some signings this past week.
Yeah.
I know you had a big one over there at Langley with Mr. Bacon going to the Naval Academy.
Trevor Bacon led the state in carries and set school records with 2,365 yards rushing, 25 touchdowns this past year, going to the Naval Academy. And he's going, he's a direct entry into the academy. He doesn't have to go to NAPS, which is Naval Academy Preparatory School. So he's going to go straight through plebe school over the summer, and then right into training camp with the midshipmen in the late summer. And this is a great situation for Bacon, because he had obviously a great senior year after a good junior season, made a name for himself, hit the weights, put on 25 pounds of muscle, got faster, and now he's coming to a program with Paul Johnson up there in Annapolis that was 10-2 last year, third in the country in rushing. And they graduated their top two rushers, Aaron Polanco, the quarterback, and Eccles, their fullback. So he's going to walk into a situation where he's going to possibly be able to play as a true freshman.
Right. And I guess on the soccer scene, we had about 8 or 9 signings within the Concord district for girls. A couple of people to mention. Amy Smerdzinski will be going to Wake Forest. She is over at Chantilly, and at Westfield, Jessie Deegan's going to be playing at Alabama. So there's a lot of good girls soccer players out there. So make sure to see them when the spring season rolls around.
I also want to mention Matt Nickerson going to William and Mary. Matt was the Division V Region Player of the Year in football this year.
And obviously he's hitting the books hard if he's going over to college of William and Mary. Swim and dive region championships were held this past weekend. And Joey, who were the top teams?
Well, Robinson boys, I believe, won. Lake Braddock girls.
Yep.
Robinson Steve Sheeran won 2 events, and Drew Finelli won 2 events. So right there, I think that shows the dominance of the Rams at this. It seemed like you look over the results, and you see Robinson,
right.
Up and down. On the girls, it was a little bit more balanced. I know Caroline Bellis broke through and won in the 100 butterfly. Andrea Ballant from Langley won in the 100 freestyle, I believe. So yeah, it was a little bit more balanced. You see some different schools. Michelle Parkhurst from Marshall won an event. So
I think you had some kids out. You had some kids out in Arlington, winning some events.
Sure.
So swimming is, one of the sports where it's, the kids aren't going to always, the winning kids aren't going to always come from, the Westfields, the Robinsons. You get some winning kids from all over.
And then again, we got Ari Molina over at Yorktown, who's going to try to pull the double again, like he did last year.
Right?
He's going to go and he's going to be in the state swim meet, try to win. I'm not sure what the event is, but try to win down at States, which is in Manassas this year at the Freedom Center at George Mason University. And then he's going to drive up to the National District Wrestling meet, where he's going to try to win his weight class there. So that'll be an interesting story to follow this weekend.
And wrestling will be going on in all 4 districts this weekend. I'm not sure if they're all on Friday and Saturday, but I'm assuming they'll all be wrapped up by next week. So we'll begin to see who the top wrestlers are in the state. Girls gymnastics, the Northern Region Championships will be held at Lake Braddock on Saturday at 6:30. We had our district meets last week, And I guess as far as champions, in Concord we had Oakton, they're a repeat champion. Out in the Patriot District, Lake Braddock was a champion. Lake Braddock probably the top team overall. And then Woodson won over in the Liberty District.
First time in 25 years they'd won a district championship, and it's just the athletic department as a whole at Woodson. Just what a year! And you look at the football team winning a region championship. Their boys basketball team's undefeated. Their girls basketball team beat Marshall last night and has a good opportunity to be the top seed in the district tournament next week. Like you mentioned, the gymnastics team having a phenomenal season, and then we haven't even gotten to the spring. That's when they
lacrosse and soccer's right.
Girls soccer team won the state last year, so it's a phenomenal year that Woodson's having.
And two more notes for Woodson. Coach Mike Cooper, who coaches Oakton, also coaches at Woodson, so he wins 2 district titles this year. He won on back-to-back nights.
There you go.
And they win. They take over for Langley. Langley won the state championship last year. Graduated most of their kids, so Langley wasn't as strong this year. But Woodson is doing a good job over there. I guess Woodson also doing well in basketball. And let's get into some basketball. I guess from last week we're going to go over some scores. But first, Woodson. I guess a major injury last week before we get into some scores. Major injury. Ashley McCullough could be out for the year.
It didn't hurt him last night. 9 3-pointers in the first half on Tuesday night in the blowout win over the Marshall. So. Cassie Donnellan has moved over to the point, had 8 assists in the win over Marshall last night. So they really haven't missed a beat with McCullough not in the lineup, and it's likely a season-ending injury for Ashley.
Man, and that could be, within the past couple of weeks, that could be 2 major injuries. Scotty Reynolds for Hernan, those come into play, definitely, and those are the 2 of the top players in the region. So we're gonna have to see. Let's get to those scores again, like we saw a little earlier. Falls Church beat West Potomac by 3 points, and Lake Braddock. Low-scoring game against Annandale, Joey.
Double overtime game.
Oh.
It was, I'm not sure, I think it was 33 at the end of regulation.
Okay.
33 at the end of the first overtime, so nobody scored. Finally, Lake Braddock scored a bucket in the second overtime and got the win there.
Got the W.
Looks like a game of 4 corners going
Lake
on.
Braddock is going to be a tough team to play in the region. When they play that defense, and they're going to be strong. A couple other scores. Langley defeats Lee, 61-49.
Langley's starting to play a lot better now.
Yeah, and Edison. This is a bit of an upset on the boys' side. Mount Vernon beats them by 13. Edison, probably about the second best team in the National District, but this is a kind of a shocking win for Mount Vernon. Some more scores. South Lakes defeats McLean 65-48. And TC gets off the snide a little bit, beats up on West Springfield 64-42. TC and South Lakes, 2 teams that maybe didn't play as well during the regular season. Now it's kind of wrapping up.
I know Julian Vaughn, this big sophomore over at South Lakes, 8 blocks last night against McLean. McLean coming off that emotional loss last Friday to Langley, where David Thompson from Langley hit the winning free throws to give him a 1-point win. So an emotional crosstown rivalry game right there with Langley coming out on top. TC Williams, kind of the Jekyll and Hyde of that Patriot District this year. They sometimes they show up and then you can see what they can do to teams when they play well, but then they'll turn around and drop a game that they should win.
Sure. One team that has not been Jekyll and Hyde this year, WT Woodson, 52-35 over Marshall. Woodson is undefeated with 1 week remaining. They're going to be going up against Fairfax, I believe, at the end of the week to try to wrap up. I'm assuming their first undefeated regular season ever. But still, maybe they don't get the respect that they deserve.
Yeah, 21-0. They're undefeated. Talked to a couple coaches that think that that highly doubt that this team goes into the regional tournament undefeated. You look at that Liberty District tournament. There's 4 or 5 teams that could emerge into the championship game of that district tournament. So very competitive this year in the Liberty District.
And Hernan, without Scotty Reynolds, coming off almost an embarrassing loss to Westfield by about 40 points.
40 points. That's not almost.
we expected Westfield to be able to handle them, but not by 40 points. But they go and beat Chantilly, who's also kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. Yeah. Chantilly had just come off a victory over Westfield.
Yeah, last week, and this is a big win for Herndon because that puts them in a situation with the win over Jefferson on Friday night. They clinched the 2nd seed in the district tournament. That gives them a bye, and that's huge for Herndon to get that get in there and get that 2nd seed if they can without Scotty Reynolds.
That's right. That pretty much puts them in the region, gives Scotty maybe that extra week to heal, and who knows what when he comes back to the lineup, what they're going to be able to do, to accomplish.
Nolan Gilly, 21 points, 5 3-pointers. So This is after he didn't score in that game against Westfield.
So he's gonna, he's gonna need to come up big. Larry Benyon's gonna need to come up big for them. Let's go to some girls' scores now. Chantilly, 59 over Hernan, 45 points. Hernan struggling a little bit under Dwight Trimmer. I think we kind of expected that in his first year. I think they have about 4 or 5 wins over there, Hernan. And Edison, probably I would have to say that they're the top girls team, as we look at it right now, 63 to 30.
Until somebody beats them, proves us otherwise.
That's right. Dorena Campbell leading the charge there for Edison. Hayfield beats Robinson in a Patriot District game, 60 to 53. And Lake Braddock had kind of been struggling a little bit. Lost 2 or 3 games in a row, I think, over there in the Patriot District. They beat Annandale 43 to 35. Some more scores. Langley defeats Lee by 20 points, and Madison upends Fairfax.
It's a good win for Madison. They needed that win coming in. They've clinched one of the top 4 seeds in the Liberty District with that victory.
McLean 53 to South Lakes 18. That is not a misprint.
South Lakes hasn't won. 0-20, I believe, now.
0-20, and I don't believe they're going to, unless a miracle happens, they're going to finish the season without any wins over there. So Seahawks struggling a little bit. And Oakton 55 over Centerville, 55 to 42. Oakton, another top team led by one of the a likely candidate for Northern Region Player of the Year, Jasmine Thomas.
22 points a game this year. Not disappointing after winning the Region's Player of the Year as a freshman last season.
Like you said, Joey, Woodson defeated Marshall 73 to 34. Dominant win over a Marshall team who we expect better things from.
Yeah, Marshall is a case where they got 5 points from Amanda Brown, 4 points from Anna Stagg.
Okay.
You get a combined 9 points from 2 players that are averaging over 30 combined this year. They're not going to win any games. So, I think kind of a hiccup for Marshall. That was their first loss of the new year. They hadn't lost since December 28th, I believe, was on an 11-game winning streak before that. So they'll bounce back. It'll be a fun Liberty District tournament on the girls' side as well.
And to round out the scores from this past week, Wakefield defeated Stewart 51 to 24. West Pot beat Falls Church 77 to 31. And West Springfield over TC Williams 59 to 26. And Westfield knocked off the Colonials of Jefferson 55 to 39.
Westfield 16-5 now, playing a lot better since they got Jessica Honesty back. The more she plays and works herself back into game shape, the more dangerous the Bulldogs and Pat Deegan's team becomes.
Sure. Any as far as upcoming games to kind of round out the regular season, as we kind of look over our schedule here, any games kind of jump out at you?
Well, Fairfax at Woodson on Friday night. This is Fairfax's last regular season game in the Concord District. An opportunity possibly to end Woodson's 21 game winning streak. Herndon, as we mentioned, can clinch the second seed with the win over Jefferson.
Right.
South Lakes Madison's a great game. It's going to go a long ways towards determining seeding in the Liberty District tournament. TC Williams
at Lake Braddock. That's kind of a semi-contender game right there. Girls games. Obviously Oakton versus Westfield probably the key game this week.
Yep. Oakton Westfield. Westfield beat them by 1 back on January 18th. So Fred Priester's team's going to look for some revenge in that game. Woodson Fairfax on the girls' side should be a good game as well. Fairfax very tough at home, and then of course the
Fairfax Sports Network Game of the Week, West Springfield at Robinson. That'll be coming to you later in the week. That should be a good one. That is going to be FSN and Cox Communications Game of the Week. Games are going to air Saturdays at 6 p.m. on Cox 35, and it's going to repeat every day at 5 a.m. for you early birds, and 6 p.m. in the evening. We'd like to share some more stuff with you. Fairfax Sports Report will be coming to you Wednesdays at 10 p.m. With more basketball. Who knows? We have some district winners almost next week.
Will be a game into the region tournament.
That's right.
District tournament.
District tournament. Thursdays at 8 p.m., Fridays at 12:30 p.m. on Cox Cable Channel 10. And FSN is on the web. For those of you with computers, I know you have them out there, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. You can order tapes, you can get general info, airtimes, and all sorts of good information. And Joey, again, our underwriters, we'd love to thank them. Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And CCI Screen Printing. With all your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. So as we wrap up here, Joe, anything on your mind? Where are you going to be going later this week?
Well, it's last regular season game on Friday. We start district tournaments on Tuesday, so it's going to be interesting. A lot of these teams, that's the big game. You got to get that first win in the district tournament out of the way, clinch yourself a regional berth, and then you can. I don't want to say you can relax a little bit, but then at least you have the notion that even when you do lose in the district tournament, or if you do lose, you still are able to play at least one more game. So obviously a very important game for the teams in the region coming up this weekend. Next Tuesday. Right.
Based on what you've seen to date, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here. Who would you name as your Northern Region champions in about 3 weeks on the girls'
I tell you what,
side?
the way Hayfield boys are playing after such a slow start, they have to be the favorite. I know Wakefield and Woodson are both undefeated, but Hayfield's defending champs, and they're playing like champs right now. Okay. On the girls' side, like we mentioned, until someone knocks Edison off, you got to consider them the favorite. They're undefeated. They've got Dorena Campbell, but it's going to be extremely competitive on the girls' side. You could Woodson, Marshall, West Springfield's playing a lot better. Oakton. You can even go deep into the Patriot and look at a Robinson as possibly a team, or even Hayfield. It's going to be an interesting tournament. I didn't even mention Westfield.
Westfield on boys and girls. I think on the girls' side you have the more definitely from top to bottom probably stronger. Boys' side probably the potential for more upsets. We're seeing a lot of upsets, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of shakes down.
Well, no question that going into the district tournament that each district has a clear-cut favorite.
Right.
Westfield in the Concord, Wakefield in the National, Hayfield now in the Patriot, and Woodson in the League of the District. So it'll be, but who knows? That's why they play the games, right?
That's right. We shall see. We shall say. I am your host, Jeff Graham, tonight. Thanks for watching the Fairfax Sports Report. For Joey Kamide, we'll see you next time. Take care.